My golden child sister got a $30K wedding and a free house. I paid for college working at Starbucks. But when I bought my home in secret, my mother stole the key and my sister broke in to move in. I called the cops and sent legal papers they'll never forget. I'm 32 years old. I work in tech as a software developer, and honestly, I need to tell this story because what happened a few months ago with my family still has me processing everything. I guess I should start from the beginning so you understand why things got so far. Because this isn't just about a house. It's about a whole lifetime of being treated like I was invisible, while my sister was basically the queen of the universe. I grew up in Texas with my parents and my sister Jennifer, who's 3 years older than me, for as long as I can remember. And I'm not exaggerating, Jennifer was always the favorite. It wasn't one of those subtle things you might be imagining wrong. No, it was obvious to anyone who spent 5 minutes with my family. When Jennifer turned 15, my parents threw her a quinceañera with a DJ. A dress worth thousands of dollars, event hall, literally like 200 guests, basically a full wedding. When I turned 15, we had dinner at Olive Garden with my grandparents and 2 cousins. My mom said something about how they'd already spent so much on Jennifer and that I would understand. I was 15. Obviously, I didn't understand. But I was already used to that kind of thing. You know? You learn not to expect much when you're always the second choice. Things continued like that throughout my teenage years. Jennifer got brand name clothes. I shopped at Target with my own babysitting money. Jennifer had the big room with a private bathroom. I had the smallest room that was basically a glorified closet. At Christmas, Jennifer would open like 20 gifts while I got 3 or 4. And my parents always had some excuse, like Jennifer needed more things, or I was more independent and didn't ask for as much. The truth is, I stopped asking because I knew it didn't matter. When it was time for college, things got worse. Jennifer wanted to study communications at a state university, and my parents paid for everything. Absolutely everything. Tuition, dorm, food, books. They even bought her a new car so she could come and go. I got into computer science 2 years later at the same university because I had a partial scholarship. But my parents told me that if I wanted to go to college, I had to pay my part. They told me, and I quote, that they'd already made their investment in education with Jennifer, and that I needed to be more financially responsible. I was 18 years old. I worked full-time at Starbucks while studying full-time. Lived in an apartment with 3 roommates in a sketchy neighborhood because that's what I could afford. And basically survived on ramen and free coffee from work for 4 years. Jennifer graduated with a 3.2 gigapascals in communications, and my parents threw her a huge graduation party with catering, tents in the yard, live band. They invited the whole extended family and half the neighborhood. I graduated 2 years later with a 3.9 gigapascals in computer science, which let me tell you isn't easy when you're working 40 hours a week, and my parents took me to dinner at a quiet restaurant with just the 2 of them. My mom said she was very proud, but that they couldn't do another big party because it was too expensive. My grandparents didn't even come. I cried all that night in my apartment. I'm not gonna lie. After I graduated, I got a good job at a tech company in Austin. I wasn't making millions, but they paid me decently, enough to live alone in a 1-bedroom apartment and start saving. Jennifer met Kevin like 6 months after graduating. They got married the following year in a $30,000 wedding that my parents paid for, and then she started having kids. She had Hannah, then Liam, and then Carter. One after another, boom, 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 3 kids in 5 years. Kevin works. I mean, technically he has a job, but like he gets fired a lot. I don't know exactly what he does, but basically Jennifer and the kids live in the house. My parents bought them as a wedding gift while Kevin goes in and out of jobs every 6 months. I kept working, saving, living my life. I went to family dinners when they invited me, which wasn't that often because there was always some drama with Jennifer's kids or Kevin needed help with something. And basically, I was the one who showed up when it was convenient. I got used to it, honestly. I built my own life with my work friends, went out, traveled when I could. I was fine. It wasn't the perfect family life you see in movies, but it was my life and I'd built it myself, without anyone's help. Like a year and a half ago, I started seriously thinking about buying a house. I was almost 32. I'd been saving for years. I had good credit, good stable job, and honestly, I was tired of paying rent and hearing my neighbors through the walls. I started researching, like seeing what I could afford with my budget, talking to real estate agents, those things. I didn't tell my family anything because, and this is gonna sound bad, but it's the truth. I knew that if I told my mom or Jennifer, it was going to become a whole drama about how I should buy something close to them or something that could work for when Jennifer needed help. And I wanted to do this for me. You know what I mean? Turns out I have a coworker, Stephanie, who's super gossipy and can't keep quiet about anything. One day we were in the break room and I was looking at house listings on my phone, and she saw over my shoulder and started asking a million questions, like, where was I looking? What was my budget? Did I have an agent yet? I told her some very general things because I didn't want to be rude, but basically, I tried to change the subject quickly. I thought that was the end of it. 2 weeks later, my phone exploded. Jennifer called me like 5 times in a row. My mom sent me like 15 text messages, and when I finally answered, my mom was like super excited, saying she'd heard I was looking for a house, and how exciting, and why hadn't I told them? I asked her how she found out, and turns out Stephanie lives in the same neighborhood as Jennifer's best friend. They ran into each other at the grocery store or something, and Stephanie mentioned, I was looking for a house. The friend obviously told Jennifer, and Jennifer told my mom. In less than 24 hours, my whole family knew something I specifically hadn't told them because I didn't want them involved. What happened next was basically a nightmare. My mom and Jennifer started sending me house listings, but they weren't houses I could afford or that I wanted. They were huge, 4 or 5 bedroom houses, all in the neighborhood where Jennifer lives, all like $200,000 over my budget. Every time I told them no, that I was looking for something smaller, closer to my work, more in my price range, they basically ignored what I said and sent more listings. My mom told me things like how nice it would be to have both her girls living close by, that Jennifer needed help with the kids and I could help her more if I lived in the same neighborhood, that a big house was a better investment. In one of those conversations, Jennifer literally told me that if I bought a 4-bedroom house, she and Kevin could move in with me temporarily to save money, and that the kids could have their own rooms. I told her no, that I was looking for something for me, and she got mad saying I was selfish and that family helps each other. Kevin called my dad to complain that I didn't want to help my sister. Everything got completely crazy and I hadn't even bought anything yet. I decided in that moment that whatever I bought, I wasn't going to tell them until it was done. I kept looking in secret, stopped answering their messages about houses, told them I'd decided to wait a while. I found a perfect cottage like 40 minutes from Austin. 2 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, small yard, in a quiet neighborhood. It was exactly what I wanted and it was within my budget. I made the offer. They accepted it. I went through the whole closing process in like 6 weeks, and suddenly, I was a homeowner. My house. The first thing that was really mine that my parents hadn't bought, that nobody had given me, that I'd gotten completely on my own. I didn't tell them anything during the whole process. My parents assumed I'd decided not to buy. Jennifer stopped sending me listings. Everything was calm. I signed the papers on a Friday. They gave me the keys. And that weekend, I started moving with help from some work friends. It was perfect. The house needed some minor repairs, but nothing major, and I was super excited painting the rooms and picking out furniture. 2 weeks after I'd moved in, there was a family dinner at my parents' house for my dad's birthday. I went because, well, it was my dad's birthday, and I didn't want to be so obvious avoiding them. During dinner, my mom asked how my house search was going, if I'd seen anything I liked. I took a deep breath and said, "Oh yeah. Actually, I already bought a house. I moved in 2 weeks ago." The silence that followed was like out of a movie. My mom put her fork down on her plate. Jennifer stopped chewing. My dad looked at me kind of confused. My mom was the first to speak and asked what I meant by I'd already bought a house. I explained that I'd found a perfect place, that I'd done the whole process, and that I was already living there. Jennifer asked where it was, and when I told them it was like 40 minutes from Austin, far from her neighborhood, she basically exploded. She started yelling at me about how could I be so selfish, that she thought I was going to buy close by so I could help her with the kids, that now she was alone because I'd decided to move far away on purpose. My mom joined in saying she couldn't believe I'd done all this without consulting them, that they could have helped me find something better, that I knew Jennifer needed support. I told my mom that the reason I hadn't told them, I was exactly because of this. Because I knew they were going to try to control my decision and make everything about Jennifer. I told her I was 32 years old, that I'd paid for this house with my own money, and that I'd chosen something that worked for me and my life. Jennifer was crying at this point, saying I hated her and that I'd always been a bad sister. Kevin called me names I'm not going to repeat. My dad was quiet, but he looked disappointed, like shaking his head. I left that dinner early because honestly I couldn't take any more. I thought they'd get over it in a few days, that they'd calm down and accept it. I was very wrong. What followed was basically a month and a half of constant harassment. Jennifer called me crying several times a day saying Kevin was going to leave her because of me since they didn't have money, that the kids asked why Aunt Nicole didn't love them. My mom sent me long messages about how I'd disappointed them, about the sacrifice they'd made, raising me, about how family should stick together. My dad left me voicemails saying I should reconsider, that Jennifer really needed help, that I had more resources than her. Jennifer started making super vague but obvious Facebook posts about selfish people who abandon their family when they need them most. My aunt started sending me messages, asking what had happened, saying Jennifer was very sad, insinuating I'd done something terrible. It was exhausting. Every day I woke up to like 20 notifications from family telling me I was a bad person. One day Jennifer showed up at my old apartment because she still didn't know my new address, with all 3 kids. Hannah was like 5 years old, Liam 4, and Carter 2. They were crying. She was crying. It was a whole scene. She begged me to let them move in with me. That Kevin had left her. Spoiler. He hadn't left her. It was a lie. That she had nowhere to go. That the kids needed stability. I told her no. That my house only had 2 bedrooms and I barely fit with my stuff. And that besides she lived in a house my parents had bought her so clearly she had somewhere to live. She called me a monster in front of her kids and left. After that, I changed my phone number. I blocked Jennifer, my mom, my dad, Kevin, all my aunts on social media. I needed peace. I was working from home at that point and the stress was affecting my work. I wasn't sleeping well. I had anxiety every time the phone rang. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. I thought they were finally going to give up. Like 2 weeks after changing my number, my mom showed up at my new house. I don't know how she got my address. I assume she followed one of my friends or something. But there she was with an apple pie saying she wanted to apologize. I was skeptical, but also, she's my mom, and part of me wanted to believe she was really sorry. I let her in. We sat in the living room and she started this whole speech about how she'd been reflecting, that she understood why I'd wanted to do this alone, that she was proud of me for buying my own house. She seemed sincere. I showed her the house. I gave her the full tour because she seemed genuinely interested. She commented on the colors I'd chosen for the walls, asked about the furniture, all very normal. We ate the pie, talked for like an hour about casual things, nothing related to Jennifer or the drama. When she left, she told me she loved me and that we'd work things out with Jennifer soon. I felt relieved, like maybe things were going to get better. 3 days later, I was at work. Well, working from my office downtown because I had to go to an in-person meeting, when I got a call from my neighbor, the lady who lives next to my house. She told me there was a car in my driveway and that she'd seen a woman with kids enter my house with a key. I went pale. I asked her what the woman looked like, and when she described her, I knew it was Jennifer. I bolted out of the office, drove the 40 minutes to my house, probably breaking several speed limits. When I got there, Jennifer's car was in my driveway, and my front door was open. I went in, and it was like a nightmare. Jennifer and Kevin were moving my stuff to make room for theirs. The kids were in my room, running around everywhere. They'd brought boxes, suitcases, toys. They were literally moving into my house. I asked Jennifer what the hell she was doing, and she, super casual, told me that Mom had given her a key and told her I'd finally agreed to let them live with me. She said Mom had talked to me and that I'd changed my mind, that I was excited to help the family. I told her that was completely false, that I'd never said anything like that, to get out of my house immediately. Kevin got aggressive, saying I couldn't back out now, that they'd already left their house, that the kids were already settling in. I told them they had 5 minutes to leave or I was calling the police. Jennifer started crying, saying I couldn't do this to them, that we were family. I took out my phone and dialed 911 right in front of them. The police arrived in like 15 minutes. I had to explain the whole situation, show that the house was in my name, explain that they'd entered without my permission using a stolen key. The officers were very professional and told Jennifer and Kevin they had to leave immediately or they'd be arrested for trespassing. Jennifer was crying dramatically. The kids were scared and confused. Kevin was yelling at me that I was going to regret this. It was horrible. It took them like an hour to get all their stuff out and they finally left. After they left, I called an emergency locksmith and changed all the locks that same night. I spent like $500, but I didn't care. Then I called a lawyer the next day. I told him the whole situation, showed him the text messages I had saved from before changing my number, told him about my mom stealing the key. He told me I could send a cease and desist letter to my mom, Jennifer, and Kevin, basically telling them that if they came near my property again or tried to contact me, they'd face legal consequences. We sent the letters. My mom called me from another number crying, saying she couldn't believe I'd sent her a letter from a lawyer. How could I do that to my own mother? I told her she'd stolen my key and given it to Jennifer so she could illegally enter my house, and that if she ever did anything like that again, I'd sue her. I hung up and blocked that number too. It's been like 4 months since all that. I haven't talked to any of them. I know from a cousin who's still on my side that Jennifer and Kevin are still living in the house my parents bought them, that Kevin has another new job, and that basically they're telling a version of the story where I'm the villain who refused to help my sister when she needed it most. My parents are apparently devastated that I've cut them completely out of my life. Jennifer tells everyone I hate her. The truth is, I don't hate them. I'm angry. Yes. Frustrated, disappointed, all those things. But more than anything, I'm at peace. For the first time in my life, I have something that's completely mine, that nobody can claim or try to take from me. I come home from work and there's no drama, no calls asking me for favors, no messages making me feel guilty for living my life. It's my space, decorated how I want, with my rules, and it's liberating in a way I can't explain. I still feel guilty sometimes. I'm not gonna lie. I think about Jennifer's kids, about Hannah and Liam and Carter, and it makes me sad that they'll probably grow up thinking their aunt is a bad person. I think about my parents and how technically I only have one close family left, and I've cut contact with everyone. There are days where I wonder if I should have handled it differently, if maybe I was too drastic. But then I remember all those times. Jennifer got parties, and I got nothing. I remember paying rent while going to college while she lived for free. I remember my graduation where basically nobody celebrated with me. I remember years and years of being the second-class daughter, the sister who only mattered when they needed something. And I realized that setting that boundary, buying that house for me, and defending it when they tried to invade it, wasn't selfish. It was survival. Last week, I was planting flowers in my yard, something I'd always wanted to do but never could in the apartments where I lived, and my neighbor walked by with her dog. We started chatting, and at some point she asked if I lived alone, and I told her yes. She told me how brave that was, that she never could have bought a house alone at my age. I smiled and told her it had been the best decision of my life. And I meant it. Completely meant it. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I don't know if someday my family will understand why I did what I did, or if they'll stay resentful forever. I don't know if Jennifer's kids will want to know me when they grow up, or if they'll believe the version of the story their parents tell them. Honestly, it doesn't keep me up at night like it used to. I have my house, I have my job, I have friends who support me, and who were there when all this exploded. I have a life I built with my own hands without anyone's help, and that's something nobody can take away from me, no matter how hard they try. And I guess that's enough for now.